Are you looking for an athletic scholarship? You're in the right place. This is the Recruit Me Athletic Scholarship Podcast, the longest-running podcast on recruiting and athletic scholarships. We're here to help your family navigate the recruiting road all the way to an athletic scholarship. He's a recruiting expert and a dad of 2 college athletes. He has a wealth of experience to share. Here's Recruit Me CEO, Brent Hanks.
Welcome to episode 463 of the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. The settlement of the House versus NCAA on June 6, 2025, plus the introduction recently of Name, Image, and Likeness, NIL, and the transfer portal has significantly changed college sports and college recruiting. Recruit Me and the Athletic Scholarship Podcast covers these changes and who they will affect in recruiting. The Athletic Scholarship Podcast is the world's longest-running athletic recruiting education podcast, giving you a weekly 15-minute episode with recruiting advice and tips from me, the owner of Recruit Me, LLC, and the father of 2 college student athletes. Like the introduction said, my name is Brent Hanks. You also get information from many guests on interviews. The Athletic Scholarship Podcast is just one of many free and inexpensive recruiting resources to help you save time, money, and stress as you, the student athlete, and your family navigate the recruiting journey. Recruit Me gives you the free Recruiting Power Pack, a free monthly newsletter, free answers to recruiting questions just by emailing me at brent@recruit-me.com. The cornerstone to Recruit Me is the Recruit Me 3.0 Athletic Scholarship System. It includes a 200-plus page step-by-step manual, workbook, and worksheets to guide you through the DIY recruiting journey. The Recruit Me 3.0 system is only $39, and you can get access on the recruit-me.com website. Go there now or right after you listen to this episode. Let me start by reading a letter to the NCAA membership from the NCAA President, Charlie Baker, regarding the House settlement. The letter was posted on the ncaa.org website by the Media Center on June 6, 2025. A letter from NCAA President Charlie Baker. A new beginning for Division I student athletes and the NCAA. Colleagues, many looked into April's hearing about the House settlement as a culmination of sorts. But the court's final approval of the settlement, in fact, marks a new beginning for Division I student athletes and for the NCAA. For several years, Division I members crafted well-intentioned rules and systems to govern financial benefits from schools and name, image, and likeness opportunities. But the NCAA could not easily enforce these for several reasons. The result was a sense of chaos, instability for schools, confusion for student athletes, and too often litigation. Sometimes member schools even supported that litigation, some of which spurred hastily imposed court orders upending the rules. Approving the agreement reached by the NCAA, the defendant conferences, and student athletes in the settlement opens a pathway to begin stabilizing college sports. The new framework that enables schools to provide direct financial benefits to student athletes and establishes clear and specific rules to regulate third-party NIL agreements marks a huge step forward for college sports. That huge step comes with significant change. Going forward, the defendant conferences will be responsible for implementing several elements of the settlement, including the design and enforcement of the annual 22.5% cap, approximately $20.5 million in year 1, for financial benefits a Division I school may direct to student athletes. In addition, the court maintains jurisdiction over the implementation of the settlement, and the plaintiffs will continue to track progress. The defendant conferences are also responsible for launching and enforcing a series of rules regarding the third-party NIL contracts student athletes may enter into. With these reforms, along with scholarships and other benefits, student athletes at many schools will be able to receive nearly 50% of all athletic department revenue. That is a tremendously positive change and one that was long overdue. With the defendant conferences leading administration and enforcement of now approved settlement terms related to financial benefits, we will increasingly shift our focus at the NCAA away from enforcing rules prohibiting and limiting financial benefits in college sports, which has been a source of many of the recent challenges. We can now turn toward what most agree is our primary function, providing a world-class academic and athletics experience. With these changes in place, including release from future litigation on these subjects for the next decade, The foundation of college sports is stronger than at any point in years. The NCAA can increase focus on reforming clunky governance structures and, most importantly, prioritizing fair competition, academics, and student-athlete well-being. Beyond the rules that will be managed by the defendant conferences, Division I will continue to regulate in key areas like eligibility, playing seasons, sports betting, and minimal recruiting rules, while prioritizing educational success through setting and monitoring academic standards. The NCAA will finance the back damages portion of the settlement. To do that, we are reducing costs and generating more revenue, all while investing in student-athlete experience. Together, the NCAA, the defendant conferences, and the Division I membership have identified the existing NCAA rules that must change to reflect the settlement. These include replacing scholarship limits with roster limits, a change that will enable schools to vastly increase the scholarship opportunities student-athletes receive and potentially double the number of athletic scholarships made available to women. The NCAA and Division I leaders are designing a new governance system that reduces the number of committees and streamlines the process to set rules governing competition, championships, eligibility, and academic standards. While there will be more to come on the Division I structure, it is clear it must be far simpler with far fewer layers, and the student-athletes must have more votes on the committees that deal with issues that impact them. This is an exciting moment for everyone involved in college sports, as the defendant conferences now own several facets of rulemaking and enforcement related to specific settlement areas. The NCAA will be able to move away from certain enforcement activity that, despite the best efforts of many, wasn't working well. Rather, we will focus on enhancing what is working, evaluating the student-athlete experience, and maintaining fair playing rules and eligibility and academic standards. Student-athletes will benefit from the rich opportunities they enjoy now, plus far more scholarship opportunities, landmark financial benefits, and a streamlined NCAA to support them. Significant changes remain, including attempts to force student-athletes to classify as employees despite their leadership at all levels opposing this. In addition, attacks persist on college sports' ability to set national rules regarding years of eligibility, the policies that enable the next generation of young people to access educational and athletic opportunities. And states continue to undercut one another in a race to the bottom by challenging the ability of the NCAA and the conferences to establish and enforce rules that maintain level playing fields. The NCAA and college sports leaders have made tremendous positive change in recent years, but only Congress can address these issues. In the weeks ahead, we will work to show Congress why the settlement is both a massive win for student-athletes and a roadmap to legislative reform. The Division I Decision-Making Working Group will complete its work building the new governance structure, and the Division I Council and Board of Directors will take action on the necessary policies to implement the settlement. Yes, this all means change, and change at this scale is never easy. This is new terrain for everyone. Given the defendant conference's new ownership of complicated pieces of rulemaking and enforcement, there will be a transition period and certainly bumps in the road. Opportunities to drive transformative change do not come often to organizations like ours. It's important we make the most of this one. We have accomplished a lot over the last several months, from new health and wellness and academic requirements to stronger financial footing. Together, we can use this new beginning to launch college sports into the future too. The settlement really only affects NCAA Division I programs. There is a back pay element to the $2.8 billion to be distributed over 10 years. D1 athletes who competed from 2016 to 2024 can be compensated for lost name, image, and likeness, or their NIL. Parker, my oldest son, pitched for Northwestern University from 2018 to 2022, so he is eligible for part of the settlement. He applied on this website, collegeathletecompensation.com. He did that last year, and he got a response back way before the recent settlement. For his 4 years of Division I Big Ten baseball, the settlement of $1 billion will pay Parker $58 for his athletic NIL. What I didn't know, that there was an educational element to the payout. He will get close to $3,000 from the settlement from the educational portion of his, quote, value. During Parker's 4 years, NIL was developing, so he was not able to get paid by a collective or by a business, or even he was not able to get paid by giving pitching lessons because of the NCAA rules at the time. But now it sounds like Parker and the thousands of other student athletes that are part of the settlement will have to wait for payouts. On June 11, 2025, lawyers of 8 athletes announced an objection to the settlement. There's more in an article by Steve Berkowitz on the usatoday.com website on June 11, 2005. The NIL payment and the new third-party NLI contracts are just part of the settlement. The third-party NIL contracts are one part that is replacing the NLIs, the National Letters of Intent. RecruitMe will keep an eye on changes from the settlement. Remember, this settlement is only for NCAA Division I. NIL is available in other divisions, but the settlement is just for D1. The letter mentioned the scholarship and roster limits for the NCAA Division I programs, starting in the 2025-2026 academic year for schools that opt into the settlement. 3 elements of these limits consist of no scholarship cap, new roster limits, and the scholarship type. According to NCSA on the ncsasports.org website, NCAA Division I schools will be able to offer scholarships to every athlete on their roster, eliminating previous sport-specific limits. This means schools will have more flexibility financially supporting their athletes, increasing the number of potential college sports scholarships. NCAA is introducing new roster limits that match or exceed current scholarship restrictions for each sport. With scholarship caps gone, most programs will be able to offer more scholarships. However, they must follow the new NCAA roster limits for each sport. I will read off the new roster limits in a second. All sports will be classified as equivalency sports, allowing schools to offer partial scholarships. This is a huge change from the current system where some sports like football, basketball, and volleyball are head count sports and only offer full scholarships. Here are the scholarship limits for Division I college sports programs. NCSA has a note that says only Power 5 conferences and Notre Dame are required to opt into these changes, though a number of other schools have already said they will as well across every level of Division I play. So here are the increases. Tumbling women's go from currently 14 scholarships to 55, an increase of 41. Baseball for men goes from 11.7 scholarships to 34, an increase of 22.3. Men's basketball goes from 13 to 15, an increase of 2. Women's Division I basketball currently has 15 roster spots. Under the new settlement, they will continue to have 15. Beach volleyball for women goes from 6 to 19, an increase of 13. Men's cross country goes from 5 to 17, an increase of 12. And women's cross country goes from 6 to 17, an increase of 11. Women's field hockey goes from 12 to 27, an increase of 15. Men's football goes from 85 to 105, an increase of 20. Men's golf goes from 4.5 to 9, an increase of 4.5. And women's golf goes from 6 to 9, an increase of 3. Men's gymnastics goes from 6.3 to 20, an increase of 13.7. And women's gymnastics goes from 12 to 20, an increase of 8. Both men's and women's hockey goes from 18 to 26, both having an increase of 8 apiece. Men's track goes from 12.6 to 45, an increase of 35.4. And women's track goes from 18 to 45, an increase of 27. Men's lacrosse goes from 12.6 to 48, an increase of 35.4. And women's lacrosse goes from 12 to 38, an increase of 26. Women's rowing goes from 20 to 68, an increase of 48. Men's soccer goes from 9.9 to 28, an increase of 18.1. And women's soccer goes from 14 to 28, an increase of 14. Women's softball goes from 12 to 25, an increase of 13. And men's and women's stunt goes from 14 to 65, an increase of 51. Men's swimming goes from 9.9 to 30, an increase of 20.1, and women's swimming goes from 14 to 30, an increase of 16. Men's tennis goes from 4.5 to 10, an increase of 5.5, and women's tennis goes from 8 to 10, an increase of 2. Women's triathlon goes from 6.5 to 14, an increase of 7.5. Men's volleyball goes from 4.5 to 18, an increase of 13.5, and women's volleyball goes from 12 to 18, an increase of 6. Men's water polo goes from 4.5 to 24, an increase of 19.5, and water polo for women goes from 8 to 24, an increase of 16. And then men's wrestling goes from 9.9 to 30, an increase of 20.1, and women's wrestling goes from 10 to 30, an increase of 20. There is a note, D1 sports not shown in this table include bowling, fencing, equestrian, rifle, and skiing, and they will also have scholarship and roster implications. With these roster and scholarship increases, here are some of the questions that might come up. How will these NCAA roster limits impact walk-ons? How will schools adjust to the new NCAA scholarship rosters and limits? Will student athletes get paid to play college sports now? Do all schools have to follow the new model? What happens if I lose a roster spot because of this? Educating yourself and asking questions to coaches and programs will become vital here in the near future. The new roster and scholarship limits have some exciting upsides, but one big question is how many colleges can fund the scholarship increases? For example, will any schools choose to give 28 full scholarship for a men's soccer program, or will that school stay at their past 9.9 or maybe increase to 14, for example? Where will the money come from? These questions need to be investigated. This settlement may not have made recruiting any easier. Thank you for listening to the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. Join me next Tuesday for another 15 minutes that will change your athletic scholarship future on the Athletic Scholarship Podcast.